All right. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, great. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. We're pretty excited about this. This is our first of a monthly webinar series put on by the Science Gateways Community Institute, recently funded project by the NSF that we'll tell you a little bit about today. Next slide, please. Please, next slide. Thank you. I'm going to go quickly through this intro so that we can leave plenty of time for my other co-presenters to talk about their areas. But one that I wanted to start with was a definition of a science gateway, an online community space for science and engineering research and education. The gateways have many different names and serve many different purposes, and we're not really too concerned with whether something exactly fits as a gateway, but just giving people the general impression of what these things are and what they can do and how they relate to your projects. Next slide, please. So I think this original slide came from Suresh Maru, at least this is where I saw it the first time. So most of you remember this sort of elephant diagram where, you know, it feels like something different depending on what side of the elephant you're looking at. Next slide. This is kind of analogous to all the different names for a science gateway. So depending on where you are, they can be called virtual laboratories or research portals or collaboratories or sort of all manner of other things. And I think we're all kind of talking about the same ideas here, and that's fine. But just to kind of set the stage. Next slide, please. So our work in this area, at least my work, started about 10 years ago in the TerraGrid program, looking at lots of these web interfaces that were using supercomputing. And as a result of this work, we saw lots of different projects and saw lots of different problems that people were having building these web interfaces and maintaining them. One thing we observed was that you really needed a variety of expertise to do these sorts of things well, and it can be difficult to hire that expertise into small research projects. So we undertook a large-scale survey a couple of years ago, and the results of that survey informed these 5 service areas that we decided to offer through the Science Gateways Community Institute. And you'll see that, you know, I hope through the presentations today. Next slide, please. So this was our award, started August 1st, 2016, so about 5 months ago now. And this was really recognition by the NSF that this was also a need in the research community, that building these types of long-lasting, sustainable gateways was an important contribution to the science enterprise, and that this was worth investing in. I'll say a little bit about this later, but what this also means is that gateways can be an appropriate response to all sorts of different solicitations, and they can kind of expand what you might normally do in the way of software development, in sort of expanding this, making the software that you develop available as a service to others, kind of all manner of other things. But this is becoming much more recognized by the NSF. So much so that some solicitations actually specify the use of science gateways to achieve their results. So that's kind of an exciting development here over time. Next slide, please. There we go. So as a result of all these studies, we proposed 5 different service areas, and that's what you're going to hear about today. And we'll be presenting this information from the point of view of what this means to you. Since this is service-oriented, it's all dependent on clients and customers. And so we want to make sure that we're putting forth something that's of value to you. So this will be your opportunity to hear about this today, and then also to say, you know, this sounds pretty good, but I could really use, you know, a little tweaking in this way or that way. And those are the sorts of things that we really want to hear about. I'm going to talk about each of these areas really briefly, and then you'll hear from the leads of each of those areas for about 10 minutes apiece for the remainder of this webinar. So I think that I will go into a little bit of detail about them in the forthcoming slide. So why don't we go to the next slide right now? So we have 5 service areas that really work together, and they're very complementary. And I think that you'll see that through this presentation today. So next slide, please. So these first areas are associated with building gateways. So what the incubator does is gives you, you have accessibility to experts for limited periods of time. So you might just want a usability checkup. You might just want a cybersecurity checkup. Sort of short term, get the expertise that you need when you need it for as long as you need it, and then move forward. The incubator also has a more full-fledged program called the cohort, which Michael will talk about in his presentation, maybe Betsy Hillary in a little bit. Extended developer support, what that does is helps you build a gateway working with us. So from the ground up, you don't have to have anything to start with besides your idea of what you'd like to accomplish, but it's kind of taking you through that thought process of what your gateway would entail, and also the technical support to actually build it with you, and build it with you in a way that you learn how to do this, so that when you're making changes later on, that's something that you can accomplish. The Scientific Software Collaborative, that is going to contain a list of software that you can use to build gateways. So these are all activities related to building. So next slide, please. Sharing, so the Scientific Software Collaborative is also going to be a repository of functional science gateways. It can be difficult. There are an amazing number of gateways available today, most at absolutely no cost and open to absolutely anyone. It's really astounding, but it can be difficult to find these things. You can't really Google and find these things. So we think that having this repository is going to go a long way to helping gateways be successful, because they have a lot more visibility in this listing. So in addition to functional gateways, also software that's relevant to gateway builders will be here. And so you can share finished gateways, you can share software that you've developed that can help others. And so it's sort of increasing the visibility that way. Next slide, please. So learning. So one of the things that we also saw in our work with gateways over time was that people were often functioning in a vacuum. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity to interact with others who are doing the same thing. And so that's what this area is really trying to do. So I already talked about the visibility in the software collaborative, but the community engagement and exchange area, some of you may know we've been doing this Gateway Workshop series in the US for about 10 plus years now. There's a series in Europe that we collaborate that's been going on since 2009. There's a recent series in Australia. So it's really this sort of information sharing with others who are doing something similar, even if the domains are radically different. So what you have in common is this gateway building. And we had a nice first event here in San Diego back in November that included tutorials, lots of presentations, posters, keynote speakers, and that's only going to grow over time. So we think that's going to allow us to expand quite a bit and kind of fill this void where now you can publish about your work. There's a special issue journal that combines submissions from those 3 workshop series, and that's going to fill a nice niche, we think. Workforce development, I will say about that a little bit more about that in the educate area, and then Linda will as well. So why don't we move to the next slide. So grow. So when you talk about building a community, building an ecosystem, it's sort of not just taking, it's also giving back. And so we look at how developers can learn from one another. So we as the Institute plan to do things like case studies and blog posts and kind of showcasing successful projects that we've worked with, and doing things like providing travel support to our clients so that they can go to their domain conferences and present about the work and kind of expand the visibility of the Gateway program that way. We really found over the years working with the gateways that it's a very generous community, and people are very much interested in working together and helping others work together in radically different domains. You know, it's very interesting to them to see how a gateway software that was designed for bioinformatics can be used in computational anthropology, for example. It's just kind of a fun space to work in. Next slide, please. Yeah, so educate. So what we're also doing. Well, I mentioned the tutorials at the annual conference, but gateways also, they present some very nice opportunities for students, and the ability to work with students in the projects that we're involved in, building gateways for others, is a unique opportunity. One of the things that we are also planning to focus on is building gateway expertise on campuses. Because if you look at academic projects, that's where gateway building really gets done. And if you provide a good environment for those gateway developers on a campus, they'll be much more efficient. You'll have much higher quality gateways. And also, it's more efficient for principal investigators at a university, for example. If instead of every time you have a research project come in, you have to go post a job description, hire from the outside, find someone, where instead, if you have a pool of gateway experts at your university that can be pulled from for all these different projects, that can be more efficient. And then what that leads to is job postings across organization and paths for students and more stable careers and that sort of thing. Next slide, which I think is probably the last one in this series. Yeah, so that's just sort of the complete process. It shows you a little bit how the areas work together, and it gives you just a high level of what each of them are doing. And with that, I think that I've taken enough time, and we'll move on to our next speaker, who is it Betsy Hillary who's speaking, Mike, on the incubator?
Yeah, I'll say something at the beginning, and then we'll have Betsy kind of take over.
Great, super, thank you. And I guess questions can be posed through chat throughout. Is that right, Katherine? Do you want to?
Yes, yeah, you can post any questions through chat throughout. I also just want to let Mike and Betsy know that there's so many participants, I can't actually see your name in the remote control thing, so I'm going to have to change your slides for you. But Marlon and Maytal and Linda can all control their own.
Great. So will you be taking questions throughout, Katherine? And kind of
we'll save them for the end.
Okay.
And Nidhi's going to keep track of the questions, especially if they get answered along the way.
Yep. Sounds great. Thanks very much.
Yeah. So here we are to the incubator. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I wanted to say a couple of quick words about the incubator. Nancy already did a great job of introducing it, and I'll very shortly hand over the reins to Betsy Hillary, who is helping me lead the incubator work here at Purdue, as I have divided attention between two different calls today. But I wanted to really just kind of set the stage here, and that why would we call this an incubator? And I want to be very clear that our goal in the incubator isn't necessarily to incubate your science, but to basically talk about the other half of what you're doing here, which in a sense is when you're establishing a online presence, is almost like running a little bit of a business inside of your university. And so a lot of the things that you'll see with the incubator is that we're borrowing some of the techniques used as we look at people who start small companies and entrepreneurial ventures, for example, and are adapting those to how they would fit within running a gateway, again, within the university or across maybe multiple universities. So one of the things I would like to promise you if you engage with the incubator is that we'll try to turn the way you think inside out and really have you look at the research that you're involved in from a different perspective than maybe you typically do. Another reason this might be called the incubator is, I suppose, it's the unfortunate consequence of what happens when a PhD goes out and gets an MBA, but that is the way it is. So from this point, I want to introduce Betsy Hillary, who, again, if you engage with the incubator, you'll be seeing a lot of Betsy. And she's going to take you through some of the slides describing what we're doing in the incubator. And I will try to rejoin the seminar if I can toward the end when the questions come. So please feel free to ask a lot of questions and we'll try to get to them the best we can. Betsy?
Thank you, Mike. Welcome everyone today, and thanks Nancy for the great introduction, because I think you've made my slides pretty easy to go through. So Nancy started the conversation by saying these gateways, a lot of the time you need experts and you can't have that on your staff fully. So one of the really amazing things about the incubator that we're going to be able to bring to you are experts that you can't necessarily afford or justify on a full-time basis. It's really hard to get maybe a marketing person or somebody that can help you full-time and also be sustainable. The other couple of things we really want to get out of this incubator, and we're very hopeful for, is as we continue to grow the incubator, we'll get this energized community of gateways that will be able to help us assist each other across the gateways. And so as a cohort, it's easier to gain knowledge and have people helping you during this period of time. So as we develop these skill sets across our gateways, we're really excited about having them also give back to help grow the other communities that we'll be working with. And finally, I think Nancy also mentioned, we'd like to focus on community gateway supports on campuses and sharing resources and experiences across campuses across the United States. Can you, next slide please. So as you drill down into the gateway life cycle, when we're thinking about a gateway, it starts from the ideation all the way through sustaining. And each of these steps are very deliberate sometimes, and sometimes they're not also noticeable to the the gateway owner. So we're really trying to break down in the incubator the different parts of the total gateway life cycle and focus on each part of those and offer opportunities and resources for each one of them. Next slide. As we dig deep into the gateway life cycle, as you know, your funding sometimes starts, maybe during the planning stage, and it may end long before you get to where you are sustained. So what we're looking at is, how do we help during this period where maybe you don't have funding? Can we help on the edge of the ideation? And maybe you have funding right now, but maybe we need to help you develop a plan that gets you through the operation and all the way through sustaining. And we have a couple opportunities that are going to address, hopefully, these areas during your life cycle. Next slide, please. So as you're looking at this, we're breaking a couple opportunities we have down into two different areas. So you'd have a boot camp, and I'll go into detail about the boot camp in a second, but we'll have the boot camp and that cohort I just talked a little bit about. And that will really focus on the first couple areas, the ideation, planning, in construction, and even through operation. But if that's not all you need, and you need individual in-depth help and consulting, we can also do that as well. And it will focus everything from ideation, construction. If you have a very specific need, we can address that in the individual in-depth way as well. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the themes and modules that we'll be covering in the incubator in the upcoming boot camp we're going to have. So really we're looking at ideation, articulation, stakeholders, marketing analysis, and financing. So when you think about your gateway, these are all things that make up this business that Mike just talked a little bit ago. So we're going to try to break each one of these into modules that will allow you to grow during this boot camp. And I think Mike said turn things on their head. So we're really going to try to look from the inside out and make you think about things maybe differently than you do today. Next slide, please. So when you're looking at the direct modules that we'll be offering that will cover these themes, we're going to have a project management section, development and tools, and security, usability. So as you can see on the list of things here, it's a wide range and not just a one topic boot camp. So hopefully when you come in, you have a list of things that you need to grow. And then through this week process, you'll be able to take away all different kinds of information based on these topics. Next slide, please. And at the end of this, I want to point out, because of the expertise, on the very first slide, we talked about experts that you need and you can't afford. As you can see in the lineup here in the instructional organizations, we have a really in-depth, wide depth of people that will be joining us doing this boot camp. Nancy comes to us with a lot of experience and talking about sustaining digital resources. And then Juliana with the Purdue Foundry, she brings a wide wealth of information on how to run startup companies. So as you can see going down the list, we have a lot of really great knowledge, and the boot camp should be very helpful for anyone in any one of those stages. So if you're in the ideation stage all the way through sustainability, we can help with any one of those areas because we're bringing the staff on that has all of those experience. Next slide, please. Now, say you don't want to do the boot camp, or you just need a one-stop kind of service. You need a very specialized service and it's very quick. We can also do that as well. We can bring parts of that in-depth boot camp to you in individual modules, and we can work with you one-on-one. Additionally, we can do short-term graphic design kinds of opportunities. So if you need a web page designed, or you need logos, anything like that, make sure you reach out to us as part of this opportunity. And finally, technology planning and selection. We always, sometimes as you're going through your gateway, those are things that are not necessarily on the forefront because you're thinking about the science, but not necessarily the platform or something that can help support that long term. So we have some really great people on the team, specifically from IU. So Suresh, I think you'll hear from Suresh or Marlon later, but they have a great lot of knowledge that they will also be helping us plan through this, through the incubator. Next slide, please. So I want to point out the incubator has a couple opportunities, which we talked about. We have our first boot camp coming up, and that application, if you're interested, needs to be in by February 22nd, and we're going to be turning around that the invites very quickly. And as you can see, it'll be hosted on April 24th through the 28th in Indianapolis. We're gonna, in our first boot camp, we're looking to have 10 projects to start with, so we can kind of get our feet wet and see how it works. And you can see the link there. Finally, though, if you would like to do an engagement that is not related to the boot camp, you can also use that request form that Katherine has put up there. And those get vetted, I think, in the leadership meeting every week, and we try to get back to you right away. I think that's my last slide. Yes. Thank you.
So Marlon, I think you should have control over the slides, just so you know.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. All right. So thanks, Nancy and Betsy and Mike. Again, Nancy previewed a little bit of this, and if you've been on any of our previous calls, you probably know what I have to say here. Obviously there's a lot of great new content out from the incubator. EDS is it's a significant portion of our institute budget. It's about 4 full-time employees. We're spread out between San Diego Supercomputing Center, Texas Advanced Computing Center, Purdue, and IU. And we exist to help you build a gateway beyond your team's capacity. So as Mike and Betsy introduced the incubator, there's a lot of things that you might need expertise on, a wide range of things from graphic design to sustainability planning that you don't have anybody to help you with there. EDS is concentrated on all the, let's say, programming, technical help, those sorts of problems that you may face in building a gateway. So you can come and request EDS support, for example, to help you with your existing gateway in order to add a new capability that you don't currently have. You could, hopefully I don't have to provide examples here. Many have already occurred to you, but you can imagine I need to revamp my authentication system, or I'd really like to take advantage of Azure and Google Cloud and Amazon and some of these other things, but what do I do? We can help you create an entirely new gateway, or maybe your gateway is, it's kind of reached its, you need a technology refresh. You need to think about taking your gateway to a new level of scalability or new capabilities that you don't currently have, and you need some technical support for that. EDS can help you with that. So I'd say we are, as I mentioned earlier, a sub-team within the Institute of about 4 FTE, full-time employees. So we have collectively, we're technology agnostic. That is, if you have a particular technology that you would like to use, we can probably find somebody who can help you. Sometimes, in a couple of cases, this is meant that an EDS consultant is going to need to get out of his or her own comfort zone, but we welcome those kinds of things. But on the other hand, we also represent several well-known gateway building frameworks across our team members, and we have also expertise in other things that are important for the community, such as Jupyter Notebooks and Galaxy, the Galaxy framework, in addition to things that you might know from our team, like Hub Zero, the Gavi API, the Workbench framework, and Apache Arbatha. So we have a lot of diverse experience with technologies, and we can help you pick the right one. Not encroaching on Incubator there, but we can help you find the right technology and implement something with you. So EDS is how it works is you can apply for a request here. We have a evaluation process that we're iterating here as part of our own bootstrapping process. But as a result of that will probably be you'll get a consultant assigned to you for about a quarter of that consultant's time, let's say on average a day a week, for 3 to 12 months. So this consultant is, again, here to help, to work directly with you in a collaborative fashion to help you solve technical problems. So the form of the consultation is, if you're familiar with this from Exceed, it's modeled directly after the Exceed Extended Collaborative Support Services program. The consultation is in the form of was defined through a work plan, which is a 2 to 3 page document. And our main purpose here is to think up front about what you want to accomplish during your 3 to 12 months. What are the end deliverables and what are the milestones? So not a help desk in that sense. We're happy to, although the Institute as a whole is happy to field questions of the technical nature. And also we're not trying to be, we're not going to throw or be able to throw all 4 FTEs onto doing something for you and deliver it after the end of 12 months and you look at it and say, I'm happy. That's also not what we do. So what we do is the consultants work with you, again, in a collaborative fashion. These work plans emphasize not just the technical work, but the collaborative aspects of it. So if you want to co-author papers with your consultant, I'd love that. We have the Gateway Conference the SGCI will be sponsoring the Gateways conferences in the next, hopefully, 5 years. Present posters at venues like that or at your domain conference, your domain venues for your area of science. Work with you on a daily or regular basis to develop good software engineering practices, and potentially lay the foundations for longer collaboration. So these collaborations are intended to be finite, as you see again in the box. But this is a thing that we need to figure out ourselves within the Institute over the next, which is a part of our process over the first 2 years of funding is, how can we how can we figure out how to devote larger efforts to to projects that really need it. And so that's probably through a co-funding model. All right, so next slide. How do I advance? Can somebody advance the slide for me, or what do I do? Oh, there we go. Thank you. And then here's a quick list of active consultations that we have right now. So the first couple are maybe what we were traditionally thinking of as gateways, and so there's some overlap here with, so the second one actually has some additional exceed effort on it, helping with some back-end computation. But here, the Institute is useful because it allows us to devote effort to things that Exceed doesn't do, like help build the front-end interface to the Cosmic to cryo-EM gateway. CITSci.org is interesting in that it's a citizen science gateway, which is also in its own sense a gateway framework. It's very data-driven, and the data doesn't have to be big. It's supporting, if you will, the long tail of science. Phrase I don't particularly care for, but I just uttered it, and we're recording, so great. So anyway, CITSci is, that's not really even an Exceed gateway in the normal sense. So this is where the Institute really helps out by, I think, reaching out to areas of science that, and science gateways that are more data-centric and not necessarily concentrating on, pardon me, not necessarily concentrating on the computational aspects. And so the other gateways here, you can read for yourselves. I'll probably, in the interest of time, need to hand it over to the next speaker, but we certainly welcome questions about this later. Thank you.
Okay, so
I'm running your slides for you, just so you know.
no problem. So I'm Maytal Dahan. I'm going to talk about the Scientific Software Collaborative. So the goal of SSC is to create more gateways by making them easier to build, have more researchers using gateways by increasing the awareness of them, and also enable software products, including NSF-funded projects, to integrate into the Institute and help promote their products. So when you come to the Scientific Software Collaborative, you kind of have two questions to ask yourself. I want to find a software solution, or I want to share something. So you can come browse our soon to be available listing of science gateways. So you can kind of see what is available out there and see what technologies they use to build their gateways. And then you can come and use those gateways. And you can also identify software components that you can use in your own gateway. So if you have Python developers and you're interested in building a gateway, you can come to our software listing and say kind of what gateway tools are available in Python. This is the expertise I have. Or if you want a complete software package out of the box to give you kind of an example gateway to play with, we'll have that available as well. So there'll be kind of deployable containers that you can take to our hosting environment, and you can assemble and test it there and play around with it, and it gives you kind of a sandbox location to play with some gateway technologies. And then if you have a gateway, there's not really a central gateway repository right now where you can say what exists in the space. I'm interested in a chemistry gateway. What exists, what can I use? There's no real single location you can come find it out. So the goal is to have a gateway listing to offer that. In addition, we're also going to have the ability to offer your technology. So become a SGCI affiliate and offer your technology through the Science Gateway Institute. These are all currently kind of in the requirements or early development stages. These are products that will continually be iterated over and improved upon. Both a gateway listing and a software listing aren't kind of solutions that are solved on day one, but are continually improved upon. And if you're interested in knowing when those become available, please sign up for our mailing list. And when those are ready to go, we'll be pushing those out and soliciting feedback from the community. One of the main goals of both the gateway listing and the software listing is for it to become a community supported tool. So it isn't just us populating those, but really the community takes that over, and they would be populating their gateways available, and they would be populating what software they're interested in sharing, and be able to provide their feedback. Next slide. So I'm just going to go into a little bit about our software gateway listing. This is going to be available soon in beta. It will be initially populated with existing projects that we know, but we'll be pushing it heavily in order to make sure that the community contributes back to it. We'll have a wide variety of metadata such as description, URL, what technology was used, field of science, and various other tags. And like I said earlier, the goal is to have this community contributed and maintained, where it can be, anyone can submit to add their gateway to the list. There'll be some automation to making sure that links continue to work in order for them to stay active on the list and such. Next slide. So you can kind of click through these as I talk. So this is just a beta of what it looks like right now. We're going to continue improving on it before it goes to production, but just to give you a little teaser of what it looks like. So you'll be able to kind of search by tags, by description, and to kind of really find what kind of gateway you need. Next one. You'll be able to add your own science gateway and fill out all the metadata. Next slide. You'll be able to, if you were the one who entered a previous entry, you'll be able to go in and edit it. I think, oh, that's it. So the software gateway listing will be available, we hope, sometime over the next few weeks. And, it'll be publicly viewable and available. And then you will have to create an account and log in if you want to add your gateway to it. So we look forward to getting this out to the community in short order and seeing how it takes off.
All right, thanks, Maytal. Hi, I'm Katherine Lawrence. You've been hearing me throughout here and there. I'm just going to talk briefly about what community engagement and exchange is contributing to the Institute. Essentially, we're here to help you share what you have created or learn from others about what they've created. And obviously, this webinar is part of the things that we offer. So I want to seed in your mind initially, in particular, that there are opportunities for you to share your, what you are up to in more than just presenting at a conference. These pictures here are from our most recent conference, Gateways 2016, which was in November. And there's both presentations as well as poster sessions. But you can also contribute to our blog. You can do a guest blog post. We're happy to interview you. And also, you can present at one of these webinars if you'd like people to learn about what you're up to. And we can feature you in a case study. I think case studies are a great way for people to learn about what, how other people have solved problems. So you can volunteer for all of these kinds of things by sending an email to help@sciencegateways.org. You'll see that email repeated a lot. That sends us a notification that you're interested in getting involved in one way or another. Our annual conference will be coming up in October, and the call for participation will begin with the earliest submissions will be due in June. And then later, that will be for things like tutorials and presentations. Posters will be a little bit later, and we'll have other kinds of ways of participating as well. Also, we hope to create some community groups, and if you'd like to moderate, that's an option. So if you'd like to learn from other people, obviously attending our webinars is one way of doing that. We have a number of online resources already, which includes news and other kinds of events that are happening that we sponsor and other people sponsor. We've been getting job listings sent to us, and we have various links to research. We'll be expanding those over the coming months and years, as well as adding case studies. As we mentioned, we're happy to do a case study about you, but also we'll be profiling projects that we're developing ourselves through extended developer support or the Incubator. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and we also have the mailing list, which many of you probably how many of you found out about this webinar. If you signed up for the webinar because someone sent it, the notice to you, you can join our mailing list. We don't inundate you too often with messages because it's one way. Also, there was a question in chat, and this is one other feature of community engagement and exchange, which is that we have gateway building expertise for creating campus gateway development groups. So Sandra Gessing is the person who is going to be doing that outreach for that. And if you're interested in having her come and visit your campus and to talk about how people go about setting up campus gateway development groups, she's your person. So feel free to reach out to us for that as well. Finally, there's lots of ways that you can promote your own research and connect with other people. The US, European, and Australian workshops are collaborating such that the papers that are presented and accepted at their workshops and our conference are allowed to submit to a special issue journal that is published each year. So I think that's my last plug for attending Gateways 2017. With that, I'll hand off to Linda to talk about workforce development.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So our workforce development component is focused on nurturing the next generation of Science Gateway users and developers. We've initiated a Young Professionals Network under that area, and we encourage you to join that network.
Linda, you may want to stop your video because your audio is getting messed up.
Okay. All right. So let's stop the video. All right. So our Young Professionals Network is linked off the main Science Gateways page, or you can go to sciencegateways.org/YP for young professionals. One of the programs that we've got up and running under that Young Professionals Network is the ability for you to apply for a summer opportunity. We are asking we have programs for both graduate students and undergraduate students. So we seek graduate and undergraduate student applicants for these three opportunities. The participants must be U.S. citizens or permanent residents in the U.S. or its possession. We encourage underrepresented groups in science to apply. And the first workshop is a 3-day computational chemistry workshop for graduate students. This provides an opportunity to move your own research projects onto the SGCI Gateway. That SGCI stands for Science and Engineering Applications, and it easily empowers researchers to use scientific applications.
Oh, Lindo, I think we totally lost your sound, unfortunately.
And deployed across a wide range of supercomputing clouds. Got it? Okay. So that's the first workshop. It is on graduate students. The second is a 4-week workshop for undergraduate students. We do ask that the participants complete their freshman year with a major in computer science and computer engineering related field. That workshop covers the core skills needed in design and maintenance of science gateways. Students receive a stipend of $500 a week plus housing and transportation. Now, for the first workshop, I forgot to mention the fact that if you're selected for the 3-day computational chemistry program for graduate students, that you also receive a stipend of $500 plus housing and transportation. And then the third opportunity is an 8-week internship where you'll be placed at one of the Science Gateway partner sites. And it's open to both graduate students and undergraduate students who, if the undergraduate students have completed their junior year with an appropriate major, you receive a stipend of $500 a week plus housing and transportation. So that's one of the, that's one thing that we have implemented under our Young Professionals Network. We've also assisted young professionals to attend our annual conference, and we'll be having assistants to attend other conferences right now. It looks like Novachet and ADME. So you could apply for travel awards. Next slide. We need the next slide. Okay. So coming up very soon, we'll be implementing our spotlight on young professionals. So we look for your applications for that, so that you can we need your bio and a headshot and some other things. But we want to highlight your accomplishments in this area, and so you'll get some spotlight on our website when that opportunity becomes available very, very soon. And we're also providing assistance for professional editing of your technical publications. So if you are maybe a non-native English-speaking professional in this area and you want some assistance editing, you can contact us with that, and we will also give you the assistance you need to make sure that your publications are in a style that's polished and ready for submission. And so these are opportunities we have available now and coming up in the near future. We are interested in having you join us through our Young Professionals Network. And also, we're looking for mentors for these young professionals as well. So stand by, check our website often for upcoming opportunities for workforce development. Okay. And I'll hand it over now to Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy will be next.
Okay.
Welcome back, Nancy.
Yep, great. Thanks, everybody. We're doing okay on time, actually. I wasn't sure that was going to work out. So I have just a couple of wrap-up slides, and then there's some more questions coming in on chat. There are also opportunities to work with us. We write letters of support for people who are putting in proposals who would like to leverage our services. And we're also open to being written into proposals going forward so that you can rely on us finding the expertise you need and just write the Institute in. If you need some more kind of dedicated support, want to be able to define your own timelines, want to be able to define exactly what we'll do for you, those are certainly options too. We're developing a partnership program as well, an institutional level partnership program to enable exchange of services. So we might be looking for software sustainability advice from institutions that do that sort of work. And so those are both evolving areas. If you go to the main website, sciencegateways.org, mouse over the services link, that'll give you links to all the things that we talked about today, as well as the link to put in requests, as well as a link about these letters of collaborations and how to request such things and that sort of thing. The About menu item in sciencegateways.org, that talks a little bit about the partnership program that's evolving kind of rapidly at this point. Next slide, please. Yeah, and that's it. We really want to thank everyone for their interest today. I know that some of you have also heard presentations about the Institute on things like the Campus Champions calls or the Exceed ECSS Symposium. And so we've been really trying to get the word out this fall as we get up and running and are now kind of in a position to actually start beginning work, as you saw on Marlon's slides and you saw on the Incubator slide. So we're really excited about being actually able to do things for the research community and with the research community. So we're glad that you took some time to spend with us today. And I think with that, really, we can probably jump to questions, I'd say, Katherine and Heidi.
Yep, definitely. So so far, a lot of the questions have been answered on chat. So
yep, it's good.
There were some questions about, so far, I just mentioned the Campus Gateway Development Groups, support for that. Also support for a sandbox for developing your own gateway. Maytal answered a question about that. And also how to find out more about the summer programs that Workforce Development is offering and join the Young Professionals Network. So there's some links in chat for answering those. But so I think you could put your question in chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself, you're welcome to ask a question and talk to us directly without having to type your question. I can't imagine that we're so good at answering every single question. In our presentation, there are no questions, but folks are welcome to ask us about any details for sure.
Yeah, and if things come to you later too, you could find any of us who presented today. There's probably links to our contact information on the sciencegateways.org page, or send to help, and we'll get things routed to the right folks. So anything that comes in later, we're happy to answer questions.
This is Marlon. I have a comment that if you do the math, EDS can support at any one time about 16 projects, and while we didn't want to try and do 16 right off the bat, we definitely have room for more capacity. So if you're interested in doing this and want to follow up, we're happy to do that. And I'll just also, you heard from Betsy and Mike about the incubator. They're also, now's the time for lots of these services to get involved.
Maytal, maybe you could answer a question that was posted about whether we'll be hosting gateways.
Sure. So there will be kind of a hosting sandbox where you can play with technologies, but we're not going to be a permanent hosting environment. There are other places that are more appropriate for that. I believe Exceed has a couple you can apply for as well. So that's a good place to look for. But we're not going to be kind of a permanent VM hosting shop. More like a hosting place to test out and play with technologies.
And there's also a question from Jack Smith, and maybe Jack, you can clarify on this. He's asked if there are any residency opportunities for more immersive learning. Jack, maybe if you want to unmute yourself, you can explain what exactly that means. Or I can unmute you. Here you go. I've just unmuted you.
Okay, I was trying to figure out how to do that. Basically, just where you can actually spend some time at an institution, sort of more immersed into the environment, so that you don't have to do so much by email, etc. More intense kind of learning, either with the incubator program or with EDS or one of those other programs.
Yeah, I think, Jack and I know each other from the Exceed program, where he's been a campus champion fellow for a couple of years, and you might be thinking about something like that. I think that's a really good idea. It's not something we've planned on just straight away. It's a much smaller program than Exceed, and it's hard to be able to do all of those kind of labor-intensive things. But that's a really neat idea, and you could see people being paired on, say, EDS projects to really roll up their sleeves and learn how to do some things there. So that's worth adding to the let's think about how to do this list, I would say, Jack. But it's not something that we have today.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Meet you again. There's also some questions that came in with registration, and I think are worth answering. And I see that actually one of them just popped up that it came in through the original registrations too, about the role in Exceed and how the whole Exceed SGCI relationship is seen as working.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I'm sure Marlon can as well. So in the Exceed program, we can only help gateways that are using Exceed resources. So they're using supercomputers in some way. There are many, many more types of gateways than those that need, the very highest end computing. And so that's why the Institute was created. To help those, and also to be able to focus on, as Marlon said in his slides, the front end development. So in Exceed, we try very much to help existing gateways just do the plumbing necessary to send jobs to the supercomputers and return data and that sort of thing. But we don't do a lot of front end design, and so that's what this grant allows us to do. So in my view, they're very complementary. The services of SGCI are going to be available through Exceed as a level 2 service provider. And I'm going to have to really work hard so that users aren't confused by that, sort of fine line distinction. But in my mind, it's got kind of a very clear distinction, what the two programs do differently.
So I'll add, we've had one case so far that somebody came to SGCI asking for support. And we decided after some initial interviews, that this is actually what they really needed was Exceed back-end help. And so it was a good fit. It was actually a better fit. So I took off my SGCI hat and put on my Exceed Science Gateway Program Manager hat and and help them, get a startup allocation. So I think there's a lot of potential collaborative opportunities between the two to do things that the other doesn't do. So we don't provide hosting, like Maytal clarified earlier. We don't provide computing. We do help you integrate with your campus gateway or with your campus resources, and we can help you front-end develop it within EDS. And then, of course, the incubator and other components have a lot of services that Exceed doesn't even begin to offer. So it's out of scope for Exceed. So I think there's a lot of potential opportunities to collaborate.
Right. I mean, the range of skills that Betsy described for the incubator bootcamp is nothing like what we've been able to do in Exceed. We just don't have that range of staff. So it's really complementary.
And I wanted to also add, based on something that Nancy mentioned, which was helping with the front end. The incubator is offering short-term consulting, as you know, in a lot of different areas. But one of the terrific short-term opportunities that would be available for anybody who would like to improve the quality of their interface is student usability support. So essentially, each term we'll be having a new team of a couple of students, and Purdue will, from Michigan, but also Purdue will have its own set of usability consultants who can do usability evaluation of your gateway or provide advice as you're getting started. So that's something to consider even very soon, if that's something that interests you, and we'll be having some more information about that online very soon. So I welcome others to pipe in with questions. I was looking over the questions sent before, and I think we covered most of them. There's a question about how soon the slides will be posted, and we can get them up later today. I was getting them ready earlier, and then my computer froze. So we'll be posting those for you very soon.
Hi, this is Mona. I just wanted to kind of chime in a bit about the SGCI and the Exceed collaboration as an example for others who may be interested. I have a project that currently goes across for SGCI and Exceed. They use Exceed for the VM hosting and using SGCI for the front-end development. And then I also have another project that uses SGCI for the front-end development, but uses Exceed ECSS for the back-end development. So these are the same project that now have both sort of institution collaboration. So that's just to give some people an idea of how perhaps the two can work together.
Thanks, Mona. That's a great example. Any other questions? Well, maybe we will finish in an hour. That would be remarkable. I'll give you guys like one more minute to think of any questions you may have. But as we mentioned, we are available through help@sciencegateways.org, and we have forums online as well for expressing interest in requesting services.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for attending today. And thanks to my co-presenters.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.